And every one of you. Welcome the community to our monthly town hall. We are so excited, so grateful, so thankful that each and every one of you could join us. But before we get started, there's just something we want to note from the very, very beginning. There's a lot going on in our community as we are approximately about 90 days away from the 100-year anniversary of the worst racial terror attack on U.S. soil, and that was right here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the community of Greenwood, known as Black Wall Street. Lots of people are talking about getting here to help us pay homage to our ancestors, to help us fight for justice for Greenwood. And there's a lot of individuals, a lot of entities, a lot of organizations who are saying that they're fighting for justice, but we would beg to differ. And so I want to bring to your attention, and if you could just go to the next slide, an article that was taken out in the USA Today, a national publication by the Tulsa Centennial Race Massacre Commission. And I take great issue with this statement that Tulsa is leading America's journey to racial healing. I take great issue with that personally because, as you all know, my twin brother, Terrence Crutcher, was shot and killed by the city of Tulsa, by a Tulsa police officer. And we are going on 5 years. We have yet to receive any atonement. We have yet to receive any justice. We have yet to receive any healing for my family. My mother, Leanna Crutcher, went to her grave a few weeks ago, not getting justice for her son. So just imagine a mother, Leslie Randall, who's 106. Just imagine a mother, Viola Fletcher. Just imagine a Hughes Van Ellis, who's 100 years old, who's been fighting for justice for 100 years. And so I take it personal when we put out in national publications and we mislead the nation that we're leading America's journey to racial healing. But I will let you know this, the Justice for Greenwood Foundation, we're doing the real work, and all of our partners, we're doing the real work to make sure that we get justice. Healing is simply justice. Healing is simply repair, restitution, respect. And if we're not talking about those things, we can't say anything about reconciliation. We can't talk about healing. And so I just want for you all to chime in as we go throughout this meeting. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from the community. We want to know what you think and how you feel about the Race Massacre Commission stating that the city of Tulsa is leading America's journey to racial healing. I'm on the front line every single day fighting for this community. The people who you will hear from today are on the front lines every single day. The attorneys are on the front line every single day leading that journey, fighting for justice. And so type in the chat box, let us know what you think, let us know how you feel. And we're going to talk about this issue, this article, during our question and answer session. So I just want to get that out the way from the very beginning. But before we get started and get into the meat of our meeting tonight, I just want to thank any survivors who are on this call and any descendant who's on the call. We honor you. We fight for you. This is what this is about. And so thank you so much for joining us, and to all of the community, all of our partners. We can't fight without you. I always say it's hard to go to war alone. We have to go to war with the army. And we thank you for joining this movement, this fight for justice. And also, I want us to just pause for about 60 seconds. We want to dedicate this town hall to the late, great former state senator Maxine Horner. She was a fierce advocate for Greenwood. She actually established the Race Massacre Commission a few decades ago, and her mission and her goal was to research what happened almost 100 years ago and to seek justice and to seek reparations for this community. And I will say this, I know for a fact that she went to her grave. She took her last breath sending emails and fighting for justice and talking about Greenwood and fighting for this community and making sure that people do right by her. And so we stand on the shoulders of giants tonight. We honor her, and we want to dedicate this particular meeting to Senator Maxine Horner. So if we could just pause for about 60 seconds. Thank you so much. And so, as I stated earlier, we have people from all over the country joining this movement. I'm just so elated. And you have to remember that Greenwood, during the massacre, 10,000 plus people were displaced. And so Greenwood spans across state lines, and we have people from all over joining this movement. But I'm so excited to say that just a few days ago, we got the support in the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, joined our team, joined our movement. The one and only Sherilyn Eiffel, who is the president and director of the Legal Defense Fund, and who was also just honored as the #2 attorney of color in the nation, and Ben Crump being #1. But these are the people we have joining this fight. We can't lose. We can't lose. We have no choice. So we're just so grateful. And they just made a major donation to the Justice for Greenwood Foundation. And we know that the fight for justice isn't free. And so they're putting their money where their mouths are. And we ask that everyone else does the same. So thank you. Thank you. If you're listening, Attorney Eiffel, thank you for joining the movement. We also have the Human Rights Watch with Nicole Austin Hillary, who is the executive director for the United States, the Human Rights Watch. They have been with us every step of the way, rolling out a huge report on Tulsa as it relates to reparations, and just advocating and researching and making sure that they pour or invest in this fight. And so we're grateful to have the Human Rights Watch on board, and then none other than the Equal Justice Initiative, Mr. Brian Stevenson, who has really guided us and mentored us and made sure that we have everything that we need and the right attorneys. And so I'm so grateful to him, to have the Equal Justice Initiative, to have the Human Rights Watch, to have the NAACP Legal Defense Fund is nothing short of amazing. That's what this movement is all about. And you all should be excited. You all should really get hype about what's getting ready to happen. We are making history. This is a historic lawsuit. And I believe that Mother Randall, I believe that Mother Fletcher, I believe that Hughes Van Ellis and the descendants will get justice with this team that we've put together. And so join the movement. If you know anyone, any organizations, we have BTW, Alumni Hornets United. We have the Black Wall Street Times. We have the Black Wall Street Chamber. We have the Terrence Crutcher Foundation. We have MetKids. We have so many organizations. This is about community. This is what community looks like. And so, again, as we go throughout this presentation, I need for you to chime in and tell us what you think about that USA Today article. And then I need you to go to tinyurl.com/Tulsa owes and let Mayor Bynum know that Tulsa owes. Tulsa owes. We cannot put on a multi-million-dollar commemoration and not utter the words Black Lives Matter. We cannot put on a multi-million-dollar commemoration and not pay restitution. We just can't do it. And so we need each and every one of you to take action. This is the role you can play. We have so many people emailing us. What can I do? It starts by just typing in tinyurl.com/Tulsa owes and letting the mayor know. I mean, I always say that there's an African proverb that says when spider webs come together, they can tie up a lion. We need everybody's voice coming together, moving in tandem, marching to the same beat, speaking the same language. And I believe that we will win. And so without further ado, we want to move on to our update, our legal update, because everybody wants to know about this lawsuit. And I'm excited this month to bring on the line one of our attorneys who has been in the community of North Tulsa for decades. I mean, we went to the same junior high school, Carver. We went to the same high school, BTW. He has been an advocate for North Tulsa since I can remember, and he's joined the team. And so I want to bring on the line none other than one of our powerhouse attorneys, Mr. Stephen Terrell.
Oh, well, thank you, Dr. Crutcher. I'll tell you right now, if nobody's ready to run through a wall after that introduction and after that impassioned speech, I don't know what else you got to hear. You know, somebody like Dr. Crutcher in that opening. I mean, if you're not ready to go arm in arm and join this fight with us, I don't know what it's going to take. But I'm here to talk a little bit about the legal update. And I want to kind of give you guys an understanding of sort of where we're at. I'm one of many attorneys that are on this legal team that have decided to join this fight and try to bring justice to Greenwood. I want to start off with the fact that back in September 1, 2020 is when we filed the lawsuit initially there in Tulsa County. Shortly thereafter, our legal team knew that there was going to be opposition, and on November 9th, they filed, all of the defendants filed a motion to dismiss. And in February, on February 2nd, you can see here, we had filed our amended petition, and that will actually be part of what is actually going to be framing the entire legal claims. If you want to read our amended petition filed February 2nd, that's available also on the website, Justice for Greenwood. You can download that. You can peruse and take a look at that. It is an incredible document that goes into the history of this lawsuit. It goes into the history of the massacre. It talks about the disenfranchisement, the removal of Black Tulsans and the forced removal into North Tulsa, and the ongoing neglect and willful neglect, the ongoing nuisance, and the unjust enrichment claims, which are part and parcel of that entire lawsuit. You know, we anticipate that there will be more opposition. We anticipate that there will be another motion to dismiss filed by the defendants. Again, our legal team has ready for this fight. We're ready to move forward, and we are passionate and optimistic and feel very, very comfortable rebutting and handling these defenses and the motions to dismiss that we know that are coming. You know, one of the things that's important about this amended petition that was filed February 2nd is that we actually added 2 additional living survivors as plaintiffs to this particular case. We have Viola Fletcher and Hughes Van Ellis Sr. that are both added as plaintiffs. These are living survivors, individuals that were, while young, were survivors and individuals that were a part of the 1921 race massacre. And despite the fact that they may have been young at the time, these individuals incurred real loss. Their families incurred real loss. These individuals know what it means to see people and lives destroyed, property taken, and to be in a position where everything was lost. We are so grateful and so blessed to have these individuals as part of our lawsuit, and to have them as the backbone of framing what it is that Justice for Greenwood is all about. If we can go to the next slide, that would be great. Part of our lawsuit focuses really on 2 main claims. One of those is unjust enrichment. And the other one I know has been discussed at other meetings, but it has to do with an ongoing nuisance. And as we probably discussed in the past, but I want to really focus on the idea that this is not confined to 1921. This is not confined to May 31st or June 1 or a week after the massacre. This is an ongoing nuisance claim about continual and targeted harm of the Black community of North Tulsa and of the Greenwood areas. This is a situation that was not confined to 1 year. This was not confined to one death. This has been an ongoing situation and disenfranchisement of North Tulsa, disenfranchisement of the Black community. This is a situation that we see even today. And that's really the focus of what we want people to understand about this lawsuit. It's not necessarily a lawsuit about 1921. Yes, of course, it has everything to do with the massacre. But what we want everybody to understand is that this has everything to do with what's going on in 2021 as well. If we could go to the next slide. Dr. Charles Bate was one of many people that have tried to shine a light on exactly the extent of the willful neglect of Greenwood, of the Black community, and the forced removal in those areas. He outlines the idea that that there were not even paved roads until the 40s or 50s, and he identifies a lot of this ongoing neglect that we've seen in and around Greenwood that we still see today, quite frankly, in North Tulsa. We can go to the next slide, please. This is an excellent representation. This graph here shows a map. We can see the circle at the bottom is really a small shaded area of what we see is the current Greenwood district. But what is not necessarily commonly known is just how expansive and how widespread that area of Greenwood was prior to the massacre. And over the years, the taking and the ongoing taking and the increased taking of more and more property, of more and more land and everything else, and in the interest of, or under the alleged interest of, urban renewal and progress and goals of the cities, which were strategically made to remove those properties, to remove those lands that was already part of the Greenwood area and place those in the hands of others. That's, again, part of the lawsuit, part of what we're looking to try and bring awareness to, and part of what we're looking to try and remedy. As DeMario and others have gone into before, this lawsuit is about respect, it's about restitution, and it's about repair. And understanding the extent of what was taken away is important. And this map honestly helps show just how widespread all of that property ownership and it was at the time. So if we could go to the next slide. You can see at the bottom, we're looking at the Tulsa skyline, actually, as we're facing south in this particular photograph. And at the bottom of the photograph, we see the OSU campus. And what's important to take a look here is to appreciate that that entire campus is on and a part of that previous slide that we saw that was the expansive Greenwood area. And to this day, this is still what we look at, and what we understand is a former part of what Greenwood was. There's a highway that's running through. There's a ballpark that's there. Well, these are all strategic decisions, and decisions that were made that removed property little by little and forced the Black community further and further away. And at the end of the day, this is a great representation of seeing what has developed and what was taken away from the Greenwood area. If you could go to the next slide for me, please. So, a lot of what happened in 1921 and May 31st and in the weeks following involved a mass exodus from Greenwood as looting and killing took place, and people fled for their lives. People fled for their safety, for their family's safety. And while there was a number of individuals that had the means and resources, if they survived, to get out of the city, perhaps get out of the state, what we saw more than likely was most people didn't have those resources and were essentially forced to further North Tulsa. Now, when we talk about willful neglect and we talk about an ongoing nuisance, part of that issue is identifying the very different area of North Tulsa as it compares to the rest of the city. We look at North Tulsa and we see that their residents have an increased risk of stroke. They have an increased risk of heart disease. They have an increased risk of infant mortality. They have an increased use of the emergency rooms. And the reason why that's significant is because there's not infrastructure for medical facilities that are comparative to other parts of the cities there in North Tulsa. The residents don't have the same relationship with a primary care physician that they do in other parts of the city. That's significant. It's significant to the extent that we're talking about almost an 11-year difference in life expectancy. And if that doesn't shock people, I don't know what else will. But when we talk about an ongoing nuisance, we talk about all of those factors. And we also talk about the fact that North Tulsa can't even get a grocery store. So, when we talk about an ongoing nuisance, we're talking about the idea that you have, the disenfranchisement of the Black community, the forced removal, all of those things are issues that we want to expose, things that we believe are part of the respect, restitution, and repair. I do want to try and kind of briefly introduce a video that I think that we're going to show, and a video clip that's coming up next.
Here in Tulsa, a tale of two cities.
The north side has been left behind, while the south side has grown economically.
Two neighborhoods just miles apart, but the inequality between them is massive.
Is this common, buildings like this that are dilapidated, broken down here in North Tulsa?
Absolutely.
Nehemiah Frank is the editor-in-chief of the Black Wall Street Times. He has studied the divide for years.
This plaza used to be a grocery store.
About half of the city's Black population lives in North Tulsa, an area where 33% of the population lives below the poverty line. But just miles down the road, South Tulsa is more than 70% white and has twice the median household income.
Are there things that South Tulsa has that North Tulsa does not?
South Tulsa has better schools. Our schools are essentially school-to-prison pipelines.
It's a divide that dates back centuries, perhaps most vividly culminating in the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, when a group of white residents burned and destroyed the historic Greenwood district, more than 30 blocks of Black homes and businesses, commonly referred to as Black Wall Street. An area that is still being rebuilt almost 100 years later.
Does that 1921 race massacre still impact Tulsa today?
Yeah, it still impacts us. We never rebuilt. We never recuperated all the business that was lost. Looks like 1921.
That divide affects more than just the residents' livelihoods. It also affects their health. Studies show that residents in wealthier South Tulsa are expected to live 11 years longer than those in North Tulsa. Dr. Gibran Pasha sees huge disparities between his patients.
If you grew up in North Tulsa, certain parts of North Tulsa, you are more likely to have a stroke. You're more likely to suffer from heart disease, to die at a younger age. And for any physician, that really should set some alarms off.
Alarms that many residents say should mark the beginning of a new era.
Tulsa is waking up, and I think that Tulsa wants to become one Tulsa and not the city of two.
Morgan Radford, NBC News, Tulsa. Here in Tulsa.
All right, so that clip did such a better job than I probably ever could of trying to identify all of the inequity that we see in the various parts of Tulsa as it compares to North Tulsa. And one of the things that was brought up that I'm really glad that it touched on was education. The ongoing nuisance that has personified in the lack of an education opportunity for Black Tulsans, young Black Tulsans, especially on the north side, is one of those areas that is near and dear to my heart from the standpoint of providing those opportunities for our young children and for young Black children is the opportunity to let them help and progress. And if those educational opportunities are not there, then we see a stagnant population with limited exposure, limited opportunities. One of the next things, if we can go to the next slide. And we can go, there we go. Thank you very much. One of the things I wanted to focus on was just how dynamic the evolution has been of our legal team. We have seen a situation develop where we had a handful of attorneys that were passionate, that were ready for this fight. And because of the passion, because of the fight, because of the community that has become involved in this, and because of the goals that we have seen more and more people join up, join on, become a part of this fight, and they are invested. We are invested in this. We are ready for the fight. We are ready to take on the defendants. And I want to point out that it's not just the attorneys here that have spent the time researching. We have got an incredible group of support staff. We have an incredible group of researchers and scholars, community organizers, and other people that have been just impassioned and ready to go ahead and ready to join this fight. And again, if you want to be a part of this fight, if you want to be a part of what we're doing here, go to Justice for Greenwood to find out where you fit in, how you can help us. And thank you so much for your time. I'm going to turn this back over to Dr. Crutcher.
Wow, thank you so much, Attorney Terrell, for that powerful presentation. And it is exciting to see this amazing and massive team of advocates and attorneys who are fighting for Greenwood. I'm going to keep the meeting moving, and I would like to bring on the line someone whom I have a tremendous amount of respect for. He was just appointed to be the chairman of the Mass Graves Oversight Commission. He has been on the front line of this reparations fight for years, and definitely comes from the right pedigree and Don Ross. And so without further ado, I would love for Mr. Kevin Ross to come on and just give us a brief update about what's going on with the mass graves excavation and where we are right now currently. And you want to make sure you come off mute.
Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this historic occasion while the world is watching Tulsa at this time, and let us all do our due diligence. Right now, we have been through this process over 2 years, just talking and ironing things out until we started actual digging, which our first excavation was in July, where we dug up a 15-foot drench and came up with nothing. We came back months later and hit pay dirt of at least 12 coffins. The remains, we don't know what's inside. We had to go through a court order in order to excavate them to find out not only what's inside of those coffins, but we are strongly of the belief there are more underneath the ones that we can see on top of the soil. And so to do further investigation and excavation, we had to sign on and get the permission of a judge to give us clearance to excavate. Once we excavate them, a thorough investigation will be in place where we find out if they actually are victims from the 1921 race massacre, or what we were told early on that they were bodies being buried from those who had suffered through the 1918-1919 pandemic some years prior to the carnage of 1921. And so we want to make sure that this is the group. But as far as the scientists and researchers and what they believe, and with oral history, that this is the so-called 18 blacks out of 36 people who were murdered on that day, June 1st, May 31st, to be inside this undocumented area of Oaklawn Cemetery, right off the Route 66 byway. What our next steps are is to come together as a committee. Many people have followed the news reports stated that the Oversight Committee is struggling to agree on what the next steps are. We are not struggling. What we are looking at as far as transparency was the transparency that we are looking for was the same requirements that we went before the city of Tulsa in early discussions, that this had to be a transparency situation in order to build trust between the African American community of Tulsa and the city of Tulsa, because we know there is no trust. That's why we have no one Tulsa yet. And so that's where we are right now. And we are getting close to the point where we are having conversation among ourselves and not having it debated in the public, because all of us have different ideas, different places where the remains. Right now, we're just dealing with what to do once we excavate is to put them in a place of temporary until we do a full investigation, and also as we make plans for the final resting place. because a number of us on the community, and I'm one of them, do not want them back at Oaklawn Cemetery as a final resting place because of the fact 100 years ago they were buried there without any respect. Their loved ones had no idea where they were because they were in internment camps around the city. And so we're just now finding them. And we already have some folks that have come forth that possibly their loved ones might be a part of the 18 that we possibly may uncover at Oaklawn. We still have more holes to dig at Oaklawn, as well as other cemeteries, other pits around the city of Tulsa. So what you're seeing is something that has never been done in the area of race massacres that occurred throughout the United States. And the whole world is watching us, Tiffany.
Wow. Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Ross, for that update on where we are with the mass graves excavation process. And I'm just so excited to know that you're on that commission and so many others that are part of the Justice for Greenwood community to make sure that the city of Tulsa, that they do right by our ancestors. And it is our hope and our prayer that we can give them a proper resting place once we get through this process. And so his update alone should cause everybody right now to get your fingers out and just hashtag Justice for Greenwood. You know, the fact that we're digging graves, we need for people to hashtag Justice for Greenwood. Justice for Greenwood. Thank you so much. And so we need to keep it moving. Thank you so much, Mr. Ross. We're going to move over to our Descendant Coordinator. You've heard from him month in and month out. He's also on the board of directors for the Justice for Greenwood Foundation. He's done a phenomenal job, an amazing job locating descendants, capturing their stories, making sure that they're not being exploited from other entities. And so I want to bring on the line for our Descendant Spotlight, Mr. DJ Mercer.
Thank you, Dr. Crutcher, for that excellent introduction. If you can move to the next slide, please. Today, we are blessed to have a descendant who was connected directly to the Tulsa Race Massacre. If you can see this picture of this young man in this picture, that is Dick Rowland. If you don't know who Dick Rowland is, he was the catalyst and he was the linchpin of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And as you can see, as the article on the right side says, nabbed Negro for attacking girl in an elevator. For those of you who don't know, the story of Dick Rowland involves Dick Rowland and Sarah Page were in an elevator. Allegedly, he either winked, kissed, something interacted with Sarah Page. They didn't like it. White society didn't like it in Tulsa. So they decided to just destroy and look for this young man. And they put out articles. They went to several different places to find this man. So today we have the pleasure of talking to a direct descendant, and I'd like to bring her on right now, Miss Eloise Cochran Rowland. She is a cousin of Dick Rowland, as well as the daughter of Clarence Rowland. So thank you for coming on with us, Eloise. You and I, we've had multiple conversations, and something that really came up that was so surprising to me was the relationship between Dick Rowland and Sarah Page. Can you tell the audience and the world about that relationship?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me. Dick and Sarah Page were lovers. They were in love, they were engaged, and because of the setting and the time back in Tulsa in 1921, they knew they couldn't follow their plans to marry here in Tulsa because of the racial climate. But they had plans to move to the West Coast and to go to California and to get married. And they had been seeing each other for a while. And as a matter of fact, Sarah used to come over to my grandmother's house, as my family has shared this story, for Sunday dinners. You know how it is in our families, cooking up all those soul food dishes, greens, yams, chitlins, chicken, and she would join our family for Sunday dinners. She was very much a part of our family even before her and Dick experienced this ugly incident back in 1921.
That's very interesting that you say that, because that is not the story that is presented to the world. The story is presented that Dick Rowland allegedly assaulted, harassed Sarah Page, and then that was started the whole Tulsa Race Massacre, was this incident. So after that incident, they couldn't find Dick Rowland, and they went, the mob, the city, the people who were involved in this, they wanted to find Dick Rowland. So can you tell us what happened with your father, that how he got connected to this?
Yes, my father was part of the group that was rounded up. And back in those days, Lacey Park, which we know now is a beautiful park in North Tulsa, at that time it was just grasslands. And the mob rounded up a lot of the Black men and took them down there and held them at gunpoint and terrorized them and taunted them, tried to make them give up information about where Dick's whereabouts were. They did not know my dad was related to Dick Rowland, and thankfully they did not know, or else they would have killed him. But he was part of that group that was just held there for a while, and their families had no idea where they were, if they were safe, had they been murdered, had they been dumped in the river, had no idea that they were held captives to try to make them tell where is Dick Rowland. The mob did not know that Dick Rowland was being held at the jail, so to speak, but they were just trying to make people give up information by interrogation.
Wow. Wow. Trying to strong arm your family to find another person. That is so unfortunate. So I know that your father passed when you were young, but do you have any stories, or what stories does your father have, or that were told to you from your father, about the Tulsa Race Massacre?
Yes, my father died shortly before my 7th birthday. That was the first funeral I ever went to. And of course, being so young, I didn't understand what all that meant. I just knew he was laid out in a box in the church, and all the neighbors were there. My family was there, a lot of crying and sobbing. And, but as a child, I had no idea, no information to really connect what all that meant. Of course, growing up, you learn and understanding are able to connect the dots. But my dad, as I was told, was whenever he was asked to share about the whole incident with the massacre and being held at gunpoint, they were, the men would ask, can we go home? We want to go to our families, or we need to go to the bathroom or whatever. And they were just told that, you're men, do what men do. But he would just have this very traumatized look that would come over his face, and not something that he really wanted to relive, but that it caused a crisis for him. Anytime he was asked to share about those moments, he would kind of like freeze in time and in space, just not really wanting to live that, or not even wanting to connect with that as being a part of his life, that people have treated other people just so unfairly and so unjustly. And why? Simply because the color of my house is Black and the color of your house is white does not give people the right to treat other people indifferently. But we know that this is something that we as brown people live with every single day, is to be looked upon in such a way that, we are traumatized by this whole thing. And, a lot of people don't want to talk about the massacre, because it is painful, and I get it. Pain is something that we have not been taught to embrace, something we've been taught to avoid. But it's been almost 100 years, and we've been good in this city of avoiding the subject. We have to really talk about the real issues at the root of the problem if we're ever going to really realize what it's going to take for us to heal as a community, as a people, as a city, as a state, and really begin to move forward, not in the facade of our mind of what people want to put out in press. And, anybody can make press look good. But what is it really going to take for us to come together? We have to be honest about what it's going to take. This is hatred, pure and simple, evil, pure and simple. And it's no justification for it. It's no reason why it's been almost 100 years and we are still denied our basic rights just to be treated as human equals. That's all we're asking for. Treat us as human equals. Give us what we deserve, because justice is deserved in this matter on every sense of the spectrum.
I agree 100%, which is one of the reasons why, even though I'm not from Tulsa, and I'm not a Tulsan. I have embraced this story. I have embraced this work, and this is why I signed on. If you agree, hashtag Justice for Greenwood in the comments. I have a couple more questions for you, Ms. Price or Ms. Rowland. So we're sticking on the topic of justice. What does justice for Greenwood mean to you as a direct descendant of the Tulsa Race Massacre?
It would mean such a heavy load finally lifted off of my family, because to have someone blamed for the reason why they did what they did, you know, just stand up and be a man and take your own responsibility. We did this because we hate y'all, you know, but that's too easy, right? Just to own up and take your own responsibility. But it would mean to finally have things that have been wrong for so long, to finally have it corrected. You know, we need reparations. When you look at the root word of reparations, it means to repair. And when you look at that word, it means to restore and to atone and to make right. All these things that we are deserving. And I think some people, I've had people say to me, so do you just want me to cut you a check? And I think how ignorant you are to even feel that you have the right to say that to me. That do I need you to cut me a check? What we need as a people is for these things to be made right, so that the wrongs that have been done and have been hidden and have been pushed aside and have been buried, to finally be really embraced and recognized that we are victims. We are descendant victims of what has happened to us in our community. And what I want to see is that we can get it to a point where, you know, I don't know at my age how many more years I will have, maybe 30. You know, but in the meantime, what can we really do to get this straightened out so that that black blot on my family's name is removed? And that as a Rowland, I do have family pride, because that's what my dad instilled in all of us, to be proud of who we were, to be hard workers, to be innovators, to be inventors, to be community involved people, doing our best to make a difference in the life in which we live, because we're only going to pass this way once. But to finally see that they will take that blot off my family's name and say Dick Rowland was not responsible for that massacre. That's what they have blamed him for. But that's really not the truth. They were two people in love. And, you know, they say you can't help who you love. And I can agree with that. But to finally get to a point where that's not the topic, but to say, okay, you all blamed us for this, but let this Rowland right here, let me work hard to turn this thing around, to say, no, I'm fighting for justice every single day, because I don't want this blot and this black dot to be on my family's name.
That was so powerful. Thank you so much. I actually had another question, but I think that was a great bow to tie into our conversation, tie the end of our conversation. Miss Rowland, thank you so much for all the work you do. Thank you so much for being a descendant. Thank you so much for being you. If you are watching this, hashtag Justice for Greenwood, because this is why we do it. This is why we fight. Because even though the Tulsa Race Massacre happened almost 100 years ago, we still have people who are feeling the traumatic effects of this traumatic and this tragedy. Thank you so much, Ms. Rowland.
Can I just say, I want it to be known, because people want to look at us as Black people, and because of what we've gone through, and say, oh, they're just angry. They're just angry. No, we're not angry. We're receiving your projected anger. We're not angry. We're hurt, and we're sad that it has taken this long. And what I can say is that I'm not angry. I'm finished with this. I am working to become whole. I am working to become complete, but I'm not angry. But I will not allow your projected anger to allow me to appear in a way that I really am not. I'm not angry. I'm sad and I'm hurt. But this is your anger, and I project it back onto you.
And that's why we fight. Thank you so much, Ms. Rowland.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So to transition a little bit, if you are a descendant, please reach out. Go to justiceforgreenwood.org or email me at dmercer@solomonsimmons.com. Send me an email, say I'm a descendant. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to learn your stories. Each day, I feel like I'm getting more and more emails from descendants. I'd love to hear from you. I see several descendants in the comments. Ms. Griffin, I see you. Just if you are a descendant, or even if you believe you are a descendant, email me, email us, and then we can figure out and we can get you the resources to figure out either you have missing family links, etc. Please reach out to us and let us know if you believe you are a descendant. Thank you. Next slide, please. And I would like to bring back Dr. Crutcher to transition to our next part of the presentation and town hall.
Thank you so much, DJ. What a powerful, powerful segment. Wow. Thank you, Mrs. Price Rowland, for those powerful words. We're going to move into our question and answer segment as we get ready to close. And it's definitely a privilege and a pleasure to bring on the two gentlemen who will answer your questions on this evening, answer the community's questions. I want to first bring from back of stage someone else whom I have a tremendous amount of respect for, someone else who's been on the front line for decades fighting for justice. He's a descendant of a survivor, and he gives one of the best tours of Black Wall Street, very comprehensive. And if you're in town, make sure you look up Chief Amasan with the Real Black Wall Street tour and Christy Williams. He's probably one of the most prolific historians that I've witnessed here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And so he's going to be one of our panelists to help answer questions on this evening. And then next, I always get excited when I can bring on our founder, the founder of Justice for Greenwood Foundation, the one who took on this fight yet again. He was a part of the initial fight that went to the Supreme Court where we were denied and just given a gold medallion. But he saw fit to muster up enough strength and energy and resilience to take this on again. And I can't say how grateful I am for my attorney, Demario Solomon Simmons. And then last, I would like to bring on someone who's just recently joined the team, who will be moderating this segment. We're excited to have Greta Smith on board. She was born and raised in Tulsa. She went off to school, graduated from Portland State University, did her thesis on the massacre and the continuing harm. And so she's definitely expert in this area, and we're glad to call her our project manager for this campaign that we're pushing all across the country. And so Greta Smith, so good to have you and welcome to the team. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Crutcher, and thank you so much for that warm welcome. Yes, so we've compiled some questions that we've gotten through just conversations with members of the community over the past few weeks. And also that have been submitted through our website or our social media channels. And so I've just kind of pulled them together along with some of the Justice for Greenwood team. And yeah, we have a few to ask you today. And also I want to say that while we're asking these, if people have other questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I don't know if we'll have time to get to them today, but we might be able to come back and do another Q&A at a later date and get to them then. So if you all are ready, I'll just get started with the first question.
Man, let's get going. Justice for Greenwood. I've been waiting all night.
All right.
Got me hyped up. Let's go.
All right. Well, this first question is so important that we had to make a special slide for it. And the question is, the Tulsa Centennial Massacre Commission recently took out a full-page ad in USA Today, which we see here, where they stated that Tulsa is leading America's journey to racial healing. So the question is Tulsa leading America's journey to racial healing? How do you all feel about that statement?
Well, I'll jump in really quick, Attorney Solomon, and then I'll yield to you all. I can't say enough how personal this is for me, and I know a lot of you all, but Attorney Terrell said it best. If you're not shocked about what's happening with the continual harm today and this nuisance, then I don't know what will shock you. And I'll just say this, people are either doing one of three things. They're either helping you or hindering you. They're either expiring or inspiring you. They're either adding us or subtracting. And tell me how the city of Tulsa has helped Mother Randall. You know, how they've helped Viola Fletcher, how they've helped the Descendants. Look at the wealth gap. You know, tell me how. You all have to ask yourself these questions. They're either inspiring, which means to give life or breathe in, or expiring, to take life. You heard Attorney Terrell talk about how the life expectancy of a child that lives on the north side of the track is 10 years less than a child on the south side of the tracks. You heard him say that we live in a food desert. They're taking away life. They're cutting our life short, and then they're either adding or subtracting. You saw the map of Greenwood shrunken down to just a small section. You saw how big we were, 40 square blocks. And now, before you know it, in the next probably 3 or 4 years, I heard Judy Eason McIntyre say, we may end up just having a sign saying that Black people used to be here. People are either helping or hindering. They're either expiring or inspiring. They're either adding or subtracting. And the city of Tulsa, they're doing the negative. And so ask yourself a question, is it okay? And for me and my house, it's not okay. We're doing the real work. I'll let you all add.
Chief, go ahead, buddy.
I think you better go, brother, because this mic ain't gonna work when I'm finished.
Well, I was just gonna say, look, I'm from Tulsa. I grew up here. My people still live out north. I live out north. So when I saw this article, I was just blown away when I showed it to my family members. This is a joke. This is a flat out lie. Let me tell you what. I'll just start with my clients. I'll start with the Crutcher family. They can't get any justice because our mayor says race had nothing to do with the shooting of Terrence with his hands up in the air. Our mayor says race has nothing to do with the disparate treatment that black people get from Tulsa police officers. Our mayor went on TV and said that Terrence killed himself, basically. It was about drugs. I talk about my client, Joshua Harvey, a Black kid who was tased 26 times by the Tulsa Police Department, and the city of Tulsa wouldn't even meet with his parents, wouldn't even meet with his family to tell him where he was located. I'll start with my client, Monroe Bird, who was shot in the back, paralyzed from the neck down by a white security guard that was high on weed and had weed with him, and he was not arrested. And the guy who killed him has not been arrested to this day. So for them to say that Tulsa, Oklahoma, the most racist, discriminatory, segregated city in America is actually leading America in racial healing, it is a joke. It is a travesty. It is unconscionable. And as Tiffany said, Mother Randall, 106 years old, they've given her nothing. She's a survivor. Mother Fletcher, 106 years old, they've given her nothing as a survivor. Mr. Ellis, 100 years old, they've given him nothing as a survivor. All the descendant families that we represent, zero. And then they to put this out to pay for this and lie to the world. And look at the pictures they show up here. These are not pictures out north. These are not pictures of what real Black people are dealing with. Bad roads, no grocery stores, food deserts, no opportunities for jobs and education. That's the real that's going on in Tulsa. That's why we're bringing this lawsuit. That's why we have the Justice for Greenwood campaign. That's why we're doing this work, because it is not enough for you to destroy our community. Now you're trying to take our narratives and utilize it, monetize yourself so you can bring tourism dollars that's only going to benefit white businesses in the city of Tulsa. It's a complete sham.
Man.
I'm going to let everybody take a breath. While we're taking a breath right there, just hashtag Justice for Greenwood. Everybody hashtag Justice for Greenwood.
Every day I get phone calls from Black people in this city who have been discriminated against from all walks of life, by the city, by the county, by the state governments, by people that are supposed to be representing us, who are trying to take away our right to vote, take away our right to live, take away our right to have life, liberty, and property. And for them to come out here with this is a travesty. This should make anyone that cares anything about racial equity, justice, civil rights, say this is ridiculous. This is unbelievable that a city like Tulsa, a city that's never atoned, a city that's not right, that right now is saying to the courts that they're not responsible for burning down our city, and they're going to say that they're leading the nation. This is a travesty. Period.
It's a farce. Next question, Greta. My goodness.
All right. Thank you so much.
No. Hold on.
Yeah,
I got to give my input on this.
Yeah.
Listen, and listen closely. 100 years later, Tulsa is leading in racial healing. Let me provide you with the evidence, all right? Martin Luther King Street cannot go across Cincinnati Bridge the same way John Lewis couldn't cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge in 1965, but Tulsa's leading the healing process. 100 years later, Tulsa's mayor still thinks reparations is a divisive issue, but pulling up a Black Lives Matter mural off the street in the heart of the Black Wall Street business district is not divisive, but Tulsa's leading in the racial healing process, huh? 100 years later, Tulsa is still murdering its citizens in the streets with their hands up, just like they did 100 years ago when Black men were led to Convention Hall with their hands raised and was shot dead for not obeying commands to keep their hands raised. Isn't that what Betty Shelby said? He wasn't obeying commands, but we're leading and healing. 100 years later, Tulsa's mayor, listen to me. Tulsa's mayor believes Terrence Crutcher was responsible for his own death and admitted that it was dumb and oversimplistic to imply such after the hammer of scrutiny measured the shallowness of his moral compass. The owner of the Tulsa Tribune, Richard Lloyd Jones, blamed the citizens of Greenwood for their own genocide in 1921 in the same dumb and oversimplistic racist way. If America can seek the impeachment of former President Trump for inciting the riot of January 6th, then it is only proper that the Jones estate also be made accountable for the Holocaust of 1921, since Tulsa is leading this healing process. And 100 years later, lastly, the Race Massacre Centennial Commission thinks it's okay to support Senator Langford. How many people do you think he helped, that he encouraged, that he motivated to go to Washington, D.C.? People who followed his way of thinking. What's the accountability for that kind of action? Do you think you can be a representative of my ancestors? Do you think you can be a representative of my grandfather who died in 2003 after being denied by the Supreme Court? Hell no, you cannot represent our ancestors. It is indecent. It is irresponsible. It is a crime.
Because you're absolutely right. I'm sorry. I know we need to move on, but you're right. It's indecent. It is so disrespectful. You and I, Chief, we spent hours. Of course, you're a direct descendant, but we spent years with descendants, with survivors, going back and forth to D.C. as they were fighting for justice, fighting for respect, fighting for repair. And the city fought them every step of the way and still fighting them.
That's right.
And I can't believe that any Black person from our community would allow something like this to be publicized to the world when they know this is not true. It's ridiculous. Justice for Greenwood. If you agree with us, hashtag Justice for Greenwood, and then also sign up with us so we can fight to make this right.
Absolutely. Hashtag Justice for Greenwood. And I think if you all are ready, we can move on to the next question. All right. So the next question is, how can people want to know if they can become a plaintiff in the Justice for Greenwood lawsuit?
Yeah. Let me take that as the lead counsel on that. You know, we at this point, the way our lawsuit is set up is a public nuisance claim, and it's a claim for the entire community. And so that's the beauty of the public nuisance law. We're able to get beyond the statute of limitations hurdles that hurt us or killed us actually back in the early 2000s when we had so many different families that were all individual plaintiffs, but we all had to deal with the statute of limitations. With the public nuisance, we don't have to do that. And the way our lawsuit is structured, when we are successful, the remedies that we're asking for will benefit everyone that's been impacted. Those of you who have had businesses destroyed, we got a provision for you. Those of you who had insurance benefits denied, we have a provision for you. Those of you that had people killed, we have a provision for you. And what is that provision? It is our Victims' Compensation Fund. We have a Victims' Compensation Fund that is designed to not only pay for what happened in 1921, but to pay for the continuing harm, as Steve talked about earlier. So as being a plaintiff is not as important as you being a supporter of this litigation. It's not as important as you being someone that signs up and help us find other descendants. It's not as being a plaintiff is not as important as making sure you're telling the city and others that Tulsa owes. You're telling the city and others that justice for Greenwood is the only thing we will accept. It's not as important to be a plaintiff for you letting the city and those who are perpetrating this lie that city of Tulsa is doing right by you, that you let the world know when the cameras come in a couple of months, you let the world know what the truth is. Because here's the deal. The Centennial is going to come and go, and those who are trying to profit off that, they're going to go in the wind. But we're going to still be here fighting for our community. That's what's important. Not having your name as a plaintiff, but having your time, your talent, and your treasure helping us get justice as a community. That's what we want. That's what we need from each and every one of you. If you're here in Tulsa, if you're around the world, we have supporters and descendants throughout the world. We call it the Greenwood diaspora. I say it again, the Greenwood diaspora, because they spread us all over the world. So I don't want people to worry about if you're a plaintiff or not. Let's pray and work that we get past this motion to dismiss so we can hold this city, this county, this state accountable for destroying our people, taking our land, stealing our generational wealth, and now stealing our narratives and our stories and telling lies to the world about what they're doing to us.
All right, thank you for that, Demario. And ways people can, the next question, and it might be our last, is what are ways that people can help? People want to know how they can get involved, just like what you're talking about. How can they help amplify our mission at Justice for Greenwood? What are other ways they can help?
Well, I want to talk about that. So
yeah, I'll have some action steps at the end to let everyone know how they can get involved. We could probably jump to another question, but as you find another question that was sent in by the community, everybody make sure that you send in questions. We're going to continue to answer your questions week in, week out, month in, month out. Just want to give a few shout outs to Apostle Layla Caldwell, who I sing hashtagging Justice for Greenwood, Reggie Mays with BTW Hornets Unite, Joe Deere, BTW Hornets Unite, my first cousin, who's a descendant, Candy Whitley White. We're just so glad to see everybody on this call, and so we can move on to the next question.
All right, great. I think we have time for this one more. It's kind of a big one. So what can be done to stop the city of Tulsa from continuing the gentrification of the Greenwood area?
Chief, you want to start?
Leading in the racial healing.
I know it's hard to get off that. It's hard to.
No, I'm just saying it's all connected. It's all connected, right? Like the same people who are leading in its demise are leading in the healing process, right? It's sort of a conflict. You see the conflict there, the contradiction. That's what I mean to say. You see the contradiction. We look at this kind of like a day late, right? This is why restitution is so important. This is why this case is so important, because if people don't understand what they've done wrong, they won't figure out how to right it. Right. And this case is designed to help these institutions, this city, figure out how they can right the robbery, how they can right the theft, how they can right intentional blight. Right. Because there is a such thing as intentional blight. Our communities have experienced it. We have to, those are the ways that we start to work on that process. One of the ways that a tangible way that community people can work on it inside that Greenwood district so that it doesn't continue even further is you can become a part of the GCAT, which is it's an organization that was started, the Greenwood Heritage Citizens Advisory Team. Lamar Guillory, he's the lead person on that. But this group was established to deal with this so-called blight study, which was a preemptive strike to basically put the Greenwood Heritage District into blight itself, right? Like how to use an eminent domain and other processes that have led to the demise of Greenwood. So we're getting ready to go through phase 3 of the blight of Greenwood, right? Intentional blight. So those are some of the ways, those are some of the simpler ways that you can get involved, that anybody can get involved in. That's more immediate.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you, Chief.
I would just add to that also, it's important just from a holistic level, is continue to attend these city council meetings, virtually attend these Tulsa Development Authority meetings, because TDA, they still own a lot of land, not only in the Greenwood area, but in North Tulsa that they hold for themselves. They were exposed last month by the Washington Post, did a great story called The Whitewashing of Greenwood. I think that was the title. And it talked about how they own and hoard land, and they only give that land to their friends, their buddies, their white allies to actually build that land up. So pay attention to those meetings, go to those meetings, make sure you are actually looking at the minutes. And again, I cannot stress this enough. Support this litigation and this overall campaign. As you can see, this movement is growing. It has thousands of people that are supporting us from all around the nation. Every day we get bigger. Our social media is growing. Our email list has thousands of people. We have hundreds of questions coming in each month. Get involved. This is going to be the groundbreaking litigation and success for us across this nation. When we stand together, we tell the truth, and we honor our ancestors by saying, regardless of what happens, as Hal Singer, and everybody that hears me know I say about Hal Singer a lot, a descendant, we must fight for our rights and our dignity. So as I end, just remember, fight for our rights and our dignity. That in of itself is a success.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone. That's all the questions we have time for today. I wish we had time for more, but like I said, we're going to continue doing this at these town hall meetings. So, if people who are watching today could just continue to send in questions, you can go to our website, justiceforgreenwood.com, and check us out on our social media channels, and also submit questions that way. And at this point, again, just thanks, everyone. And I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Crutcher.
Thank you so much, Greta. I get so emotional. My heart is pounding, and I just want for everyone to ask yourself the question again: is this okay? Is it okay what the city of Tulsa has done to our community? Is it okay what they continue to do? Is it okay that gentrification continues to run rampant? Is it okay that they continue to exclude us from owning our own history? Is it okay? And if the answer is no, you have to take action. You have to take action, because in the end, in the words of Martin Luther King, we're not going to remember the words of our enemies. We're going to remember the silence of our friends. And so these are some things we need for everyone to do. Invite somebody next month. Next slide, please. Invite someone next month to join us, or actually this month. March 25th will be our next town hall meeting. Our meetings are growing exponentially. This movement is all over this country. But look at this slide. The government officials deputized thousands of white Tulsans to invade and destroy Greenwood, and it's not okay. We cannot let the bad guys win. Tulsa owes. And so, hey, go to Justice for Greenwood on all of our social media pages. Next slide, please. I want for you all to write this down. Go ahead and follow us and hit like right now on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Justice for Greenwood. And then on Twitter, we're Justice 4 Greenwood. Justice for Greenwood. Make sure you hit like. Make sure that you invite people to our Facebook page. Make sure that you share our posts, because we want for the world to know the more you engage, the more people we reach and the more powerful we are. And then last, again, I said it at the outset, this fight for justice isn't free. We need for you to make a donation. Again, huge thanks to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund for your generous donation and support of this movement. But it can be your donation can be as small as $19.21 or $192.10, or even $1,921, symbolizing 1921. We will never ever forget. And if you would like, just make it a monthly tax deductible donation. We need your help. We need your help to win. We cannot let the bad guys win. And we have to cultivate a sense of urgency, because Mother Randall, I can't say it enough, is 106. She'll be 107 this year. Mother Viola Fletcher is 106. She'll be 107 in May. And Mr. Hughes Van Ellis just turned 100. He was 6 months old when the massacre took place. We have to cultivate a sense of urgency and make sure we do this for them and the survivors and descendants. Make sure you get your stories into us, because in about 90 days, all eyes will be watching Tulsa. The world will be watching Tulsa, and we have to keep controlling this narrative. We can't let them win. Tulsa owes. And again, ask yourself this question as I close. Is it okay? We'll see you in a few weeks, same time, same place. Thank you all so much for your time. Have a good night.